Hello and welcome to the Sheep Seats. I am your host, Matthew, aka Sheep, aka Dark Sheep. We are coming to you on this Friday night. We are coming with a friend of the show, a new friend of the show, Mr. Sackreligious. How are you doing?
I am doing well. Thanks for having me, Sheep. You prefer Matthew or Sheep? What are we going with?
Whatever comes first, usually sheep.
All right, sounds
But
good,
I
man.
will say that it was also kind of weird saying sacrilegious out loud.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mouthful. You can abbreviate it to SAC if that's easier.
And that gets a little weird, I guess. So yeah, we sort of impromptu. We talking last week. We started talking a little bit about. I guess I watched you stream with the Badge Bros talking about your Dawg Bowl qualifier win and sort of how you applied the points over replacement for position, and that's how you landed on your Devonta Foreman thing. And I started messaging you about some other stuff, and now here we are. So, welcome.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me on, man. It was fun kind of chopping up the slate, doing a post mortem with you in DMs last week, and so when you asked me to come on the show, I was like, yeah, man, I had a blast talking about last week with you. So now we'll do it from a different lens, little before the slate, give some breakdowns here.
Yeah. So, just without going super deep into it, you did in the Data Bowl. You did a big study on uh, basically uh, over replacement value per position, and without like super deep dive, what does that mean for anybody who might not really know?
Yeah, so like from a 10,000 foot view, kind of the like linchpin behind the whole data bowl submission was what if I just took every single roster and kind of did like a very crude simulation by replacing individual players on each roster and looking coming up with a couple different metrics and looking at how that changed a roster and the performance on a player level and on an overall roster level. And so the metric that I found some use for in the Dawg Bowl drafts was called APA, or average player points above replacement. And really, it's very similar to points above replacement. If you just did a simple points above replacement calculation, it's going to be basic. You're going to get to the same spot. The biggest difference is that it takes into consideration where players are being drafted with respect to their ADP. So it's basically like, hey, you could get this guy at this point in the draft compared to this guy. Really, I'd say like for the BRs, it's even less applicable than it would be for like a BBM or like a season long best ball draft, where ADP can get so much more efficient in a market like that. Where in the BRs and the weekly stuff, I don't think ADP can get quite as efficient. You're drafting over a shorter time horizon. And honestly, like with the stuff that you see in the season long best ball drafts, you'll get players where their ADP is just too sticky. It's too anchored to a previous value. And so even when it should adjust, it doesn't adjust enough, right? And so the same thing kind of happens in BRs where like a good example is Jordan Addison this week. So he's kind of a high fragility projection in the first place, but I would say that most people aren't really even taking him at his ADP in Dawg Bowl drafts or 12 man BRs. But just because that was kind of what his ADP opened at, it's going to stay closer to there than it actually should. And so that's one of the inefficiency things that you see in these kinds of markets.
And so the thing that's interesting about the Dog Bowl, it being the 12-person draft or 12-player draft compared to the majority of the volume that's setting ADP right now is the 6-player drafts. So do you? It seems like people get stuck just based on that, and sort of you, the ADP doesn't really extend. Like if the simple thing I ended up doing after listening to you was just taking a set of projections and just putting it next to ADP and sorting by ADP and just turning on some simple color to see like what guys are standing out further out down the list that match guys above the list But then you look at that order by ADP, and everybody's basically 35, 36, that you're picking the last 4 rounds.
Yeah, and so you definitely run into some inefficiencies there because it doesn't move the market. The 12 mans don't move the market the way like the 6 mans do. And so, like for example, Aaron Jones, I would bet that just with the little blurb that we got today of like, oh, Aaron, I'm ready to cut him loose.
Cut him loose.
We'll probably see him climb, but I don't know that it'll. We'll have to see how much he climbs, but I don't know that he'll climb enough, and he still might end up just going way too late in the 12 mans. That's another thing where, like, when you consider that in a 12 man where we've got, between running back and wide receiver, you got 4 flex type players, right, between those positions. And so with 12 people, we're going 48 players deep, which is double, twice as deep as you're going in a 6 man. And so pretty much the 24 bottom half players, that's where you find a lot of the inefficiency, in my opinion. So like guys like Ramondre Stevenson or Devin Singletary or those types of guys, like just from projectable volume, like they should be going higher. And I think that's probably one of the better ways to attack that type of format.
Yeah, I've unfortunately realized that I will be traveling for work during the Miami thing. I realized that this week, so I won't be doing two. We'll do one Dawg Bowl draft, but I won't be doing too many. But I've been doing a handful of goal line stands because I just preferred the 12-person draft over the 6. And yeah, Ramondre Stevenson is actually someone that stood out to me just in my simple sort that's kind of hanging around pretty long.
Yeah, he kind of pops for me as well. And like the other thing is sometimes those guys that pop are so gross, and that's the reason that they're popping, because no one else wants to click them either. But you just gotta grin your teeth and bear it on the Ramondre pick sometimes. I don't have a ton of him, but like I'm mixing in a little Demario Douglas. Hunter Henry, just his role has changed for the negative so much. I'm clicking him a couple times, just hoping that maybe it was the ankle injury that held him back a little bit there. Trying to figure out ways to play the Patriots side of that game though, because I don't know if this guy's popping for you too, but Terry McLaurin is really standing out for me as well. And so I like to get Terry and Logan Thomas both kind of look like good spots to me. So trying to find ways to play both sides of that game.
Okay. Yeah. I guess to me, it was also, I didn't know because like who's left like with Bourne out.
Yeah.
Being the only guy that really stood out on that offense. Like you got to I'm not a projection guy, but obviously someone that's going to go to Ramondre, I would assume he'd get maybe 1 extra target, 2 extra targets. I don't even know who they have out there other than Demario.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at Demario Douglas, and then Taekwon popped up on the injury report, and then you're getting Jalen Reagor is probably going to get pretty good run this week. That would honestly, it's probably not even that bad of a dog bowl. You might be like the one Jalen Reagor team, and I don't think that it's so much different than Demario Douglas. I mean, it's a worse play than Demario Douglas, but like by how much? Because I think Demario Douglas is going drafted in a good clip,
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, let's just say you flip the cards over and Demario Douglas is on 6% of all teams. So that's like 300 Demario Douglas teams, and Jalen Reagor is on 2. There's no way that the probability that Demario Douglas outscores Jalen Reagor is 150 to 1, right? So it's like,
right.
But then you're taking into consideration, like, okay, but it's also with how all of the distribution curves of every player stacks up. Like, how often does Jalen Reagor actually score enough to, be within the top 48 flex players? I think it's probably enough that he's a worthwhile click, but it's one I haven't been able to stomach myself yet, but who knows?
Yeah, that sort of idea, maybe not getting that gross, but you mentioned one of the things that you wanted even more Devonta Foreman when the week that you won was that he wasn't even going drafted in every round, or every draft. So there's extra incentive to be even more over on him.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, especially the Donta Foreman was literally like the picture perfect illustration of why guys with ceiling that go undrafted are like, I mean, you could argue that if you have pretty good confidence that the player has a ceiling outcome in his range that would be like, yeah, he's a top, 5 at his position on the week, that if you were a really aggressive player and you had a healthy bankroll where you could survive the variance and you identified a spot like that and you had good confidence on it, you could easily make the case that you should own that player in 100% of your teams.
Yeah.
I'm not quite that gung ho, but
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that was your first week even. I don't know. Was that your first week this season or ever getting into
yeah,
battle
first
royales?
first ever BR draft. I'd followed the Badge Roast for a while, and I was in the Discord channel, and I'd seen people playing them, and there are people that are good and winning players, and like I'd paid attention to what they did, and then there are lots of people who are playing high volume that I'm seeing like post teams or post boards, and I'm like, man, that is not like I'm just from looking at that like. If this is what people that are playing high volume are doing, like this is a game that's beatable. I definitely like you were saying, you prefer the 12 mans. I for sure prefer the 12 mans to the 6 mans. I think that's because really in the 6 mans, like you can gain such a large advantage with the super unique, hard to get combos. And so for me, the 6 mans really felt like I'm playing a lottery of did I get into the room? Did I get good room RNG where I get a crazy combo that's only owned like, 1 or 2 times, 3 times in the entire tournament? And then the next level of RNG and it didn't get thrown out. And I was like, it's too much. There's plenty of skill expression in both the 6 and 12 mans, but it's like, man, there's enough variance already in the format. Let me just remove that, or more so dial down that level of variance a little bit by doing the 12 man. I don't know if that's your reason for liking the 12 mans, but
It's I feel better after I get done with them. It's more of a feel thing for me because and we are gonna jump into a dog bowl here. For me, I feel better because it forced me to go further down in the player pool. I don't like the feeling of leaving a 6-person draft in NFL because I don't love all the people I left. I'm like that those last picks are so hard, and I will admit to being pretty anchored to ADP sometimes in that, and it's easier to get out of that.
well, I think if you're like a volume BR grinder, I think being not anchored, but at the very least, like very cognizant of like I think that ideally the way that you would play it is you should be keeping a database of all the boards that you have access to, whether it's your own or like if you have access to other people's boards as well. And you should know the range in which players go and like probably figure out the interquartile range for the first and third quartiles. And then if you ever get a player that's outside that third quartile range, you probably should pretty much always take them there if you're playing volume, just from like a game theory perspective of like this won't always even be good, but in the rooms where I get multiple players that are outside that interquartile range, I have such a high probability of having a low owned combination, and that's really what the game is about. Where ownership is not doesn't really matter in this game except for the undrafted guys. Really,
Yeah.
what matters is the combinatorial ownership. So
Yeah, yeah. So we got some friends in here. We got Juice McCaffrey and Best Ball Viper. He's probably not watching, but he's in everything. He's been in everything. The usual Crash Rich and Alejandro, and we got Whip Dole, who joined a few weeks ago and went through his. We talked through his fantasy story. Yeah, you got a number 2 this week, or you just rolling these first few?
I go Chimera if he makes it to me, just because he's one of the ones that slides the least often. And then if he doesn't, I just take one of the elite quarterbacks. I think it's probably wrong to full fade AJ Brown like I am right now, but I currently don't have any AJ Brown, and I only have one CD Lamb when I timed out and auto drafted.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I have not had this opportunity in my goal line stands this week. AJ Brown was a big fade for me last week, so I'm kind of with you though. I'm really liking Lamar this week.
To me, it's one of the spots where it's like this could easily be the only high scoring game or one of the only high scoring games on the slate. And Seattle's like a team that's willing to pass and be pace up if they're pushed. And I also just think the way that the tight end landscape is, where Lamar is so correlated with Mark Andrews, if you get a Mark Andrews bust and all the tight ends are so gross, like I think you could have such a huge advantage with Lamar. So I don't know. I don't need to sell you on him. I know that you're.
No. He was also my guy this offseason. I got a ton of him in my season long stuff. But it is mostly a toss up between him and Hurts. But I don't know, something about that Dallas. This is a gut feeling. Something about that Dallas Philly matchup just feels defensive.
Yeah, I mean, you get that with the divisional opponents oftentimes, where they know each other really well. They're familiar with what their opponents want to do on offense, and they've got some recipes for how to slow it down. The other reason why I'm and this is a projection fragility thing that I'm kind of trying to play off of this week. I think that the rushing yards projected for Hurts are being overstated. I don't think that his rushing frequency is going to be the same that it has been in every other week prior to last week, just because of that little injury that he's dealing with. I know he's not on the injury report, he's full go, but I'm just saying from what I saw last week, like he hardly ran at all. I mean, he didn't need to. He was able to get it done from the pocket against Washington, but I just think that could be a spot that might be a little fragile in the projections. And I think that Lamar definitely has his full rushing upside well within his range of outcomes. And I think it might be a little more fragile for Hurt. So that's kind of been what's informing me there.
Yeah. And the reason I've been going quarterback I went quarterback is because of the range of quarterbacks compared to the range of wide receivers, that sort of replacement value. It feels like there's a bigger gap between Lamar and the next guy at quarterback than Brown and whoever else comes back to us now. Another name I wanted to throw at you is Chris Olave. He was someone I had a ton of last week, and obviously he didn't disappoint, but he disappointed. And now I've seen Pat Crane had him as his cover boy. I got some other newsletter one of the 50 fantasy football newsletters that come to my email every day. Somebody else was talking up Chris Olave, so it seems like nobody really back down. He did get, I think, like 10 targets. So like his work was there.
Yeah, Pat putting him as the cover boy was the worst news I've had all week, because I have like 30-something% Chris Olave in the Dawg Bowl.
Okay.
I love the spot, man. It's it seems like just with the way the slate plays out, it's such a good spot here. This is an interesting one though.
Let's get him out of there. For me, I know you were talking about how if Andrews fails, having a solo Lamar is interesting. I think if he does fail, I think Hawkinson. I honestly don't know anything about the quarterback he's going to have this week, but just my minor football knowledge feels like he would be in line for a lot of under targets based on having a rookie QB.
Yeah, and his ADOT has been low. It's not like it would be a major change to where the area of the field he's operating in. I could absolutely see Hawkinson still performing well this week. I I think that in the spot where, you have so much fragility in the Vikings projection where we have no idea what this quarterback's going to look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the way to play it is through Hawkinson and not Addison. I said on Stat Chasing this week, Drico asked if I'd be taking any Addison, and I said, if he's going undrafted, I would take him, but I'm not going to take him otherwise. Just there's so much fragility. There's plenty of guys that I could click there instead.
So I feel like most people with Lamar at the situation are taking either Metcalf or Flowers if they want to start with a red back, or so I don't know if I want to take Flowers here. I think an interesting idea here is to take Gus Edwards along with Lamar and try and capture that whole touchdown equity on that game.
I have not seen. I don't know that I've seen any Lamar Gus Edwards combos in the 26 Dawg Bowl drafts I've done. So you do very likely have a unique combo there, and I think where you could, if you happen to get like a little Gus Edwards, green zone dump off that turns into a touchdown pass, like you're running so hot. Like, what do you just back of the napkin math? Let's just say the Ravens game is a 10 o'clock one, right?
Sure.
Yeah, let's just go with that for sake of illustration here.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, let's just say hypothetically it's like very, very early in the slate, like it's maybe 15 minutes in the lock, and you get a little Gus Edwards pass receiving touchdown. What does your equity goes up so substantially then? Like, isn't that just like the purest of running pure that you possibly could get? So I kind of like that. I hadn't done it myself.
Yeah, if that happens, I'm gonna have to start reading through the rules for how.
I was gonna say you know exactly what's gonna happen now. You're going to bink with your single bullet right here, and then you're gonna have to figure out, okay, gosh, am I drafting remote for work or what's going on here? Man, this Crash Rich, Tony Pollard, Aaron Jones, he's got this specific combo quite a bit. He's really high on Tony Pollard, Aaron Jones. That's another thing where I don't think very many people are doing this, but if you're playing this at volume and you're trying to do it to win money, you should be basically constructing your opponent's tendencies and their own rankings backwards by just, take the data that you have, try and construct their rankings, because you get information, get 6 different decision points every single draft where hey, they preferred this guy over these other players in this situation. And I think that's one of the ways that you can best push players around the board if you're really paying attention to stuff like that. And so I know, like, when I'm in a room with Crash Rich, I don't let Aaron Jones. A lot of times I think like, oh, I might be able to get Aaron Jones to come all the way back to me in the next round. But if Crash Rich is in between me and the next pick, I just don't do it. And then same with Pollard in the second round. You're never really getting Pollard to come back in the third.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'll just deny him from Crash Rich to see if I can tilt him.
If they're a person, not a machine.
Well, we'll get to find out in Miami.
This is a new one for the show. We're getting a trade question here. I don't know if I've gotten any of these while I've done the show. Let's see. We got is Heineke and Kincaid for TJ Hawkinson, a Fairdale. The other owner has Herbert, Bagent, Ritter for QB. Should I do McBride instead of Kincaid? This is way out of my field of knowledge.
Yeah, I was going to say, number one, I don't do a ton of redraft anymore. I've tried to trim my redraft down, and I don't do any redraft super flex. Right? But, if you just want me to off the cuff shoot at this one.
Go ahead. Cuff away.
Yeah, if you're receiving the Heineke Kincaid side, oh, you'd be receiving Hawkinson, though. I don't really know, man. I think unless you are, if you're receiving I like the Heineke side better. I don't think there's a huge difference in the tight ends there.
Yeah, and maybe it's different if Knox comes back and is back as soon as he's able to be back. But just the short term, it seems like they both have similar outlooks.
Definitely. What have you been doing a lot of Chuba Hubbard this week?
I have not, because let's see if I'm well. We missed the guys that I've been going to. Alejandro got the combo of the two guys that I've been taking over.
The Rashad White, those are two other ones that are popping for me, so that makes sense.
Yeah, so let's see what we got here. This kind of got out of hand here. This is going to get a little weird. We're going to take DJ Moore here. He's a guy that this is a little bit different. If you have Lamar, and, well, I don't really know that Kenny Pickett's a great guy to have, but yeah, I don't know. That's a little bit out of my league. I barely do any redraft, and I'm not a super huge, deep knowledge football guy. I'm a drafter more than a football guy. Thanks. All right, let's see. Let's continue the gross picks, and I've been doing a lot of 2 running back combos on this slate, just because it feels like they have both these guys. Well, we saw Gus Edwards have a season or a ceiling last weekend, but these guys both can have a middling score, I think, and win you this week.
Yeah, I think in weeks like this where there's not crazy high totals, and even the guys that are like, project for the most points might not necessarily be in the best spot in the game environment. So it's like you just might not get a ton of separation, and really it could come down to having the guy that the big separator on the week, and everything else is moot. Like, sure, you might not have the 2 highest running back scores on the week. Doesn't matter. You have Lamar. He's separated by 15 from all, something like that. And yeah, the Singletary projectable volume is pretty absurd. I think, you're going to look at like a little bit of Mike Boone in there. For every Devin Singletary team that I have this week, I'm sure that I'll curse Mike Boone's name at least once.
Yeah, but maybe he'll be a good fade on your DFS lineups.
There you go. Yeah, I don't do a ton of classic for DFS, just because like I know what is required to play classic at a high level, and I am not interested in spending the amount of time coding up all the stuff I would need to do to have that kind of process. And then my bankroll is small enough that it's like, man, I know I have an edge in, season-long best ball. I know I have an edge in playoff best ball. I know I've got an edge in NFL Showdown. That's about as much as my poor little baby bankroll can handle. So I could just YOLO into classic slates every week, but I only play like $100 or something in a classic each week, because just for fun and like the rake-free listener league type contests.
Sure. Yeah. And that's the best place to do it too. Yeah, I've last season I did, I reduced my trying to win on Sunday full slate, and now I'm down to like $9 full slate. I just to have it to refresh on my phone. Most of my volume goes to Underdog at this point.
Yeah, honestly, after dipping my toes in the BR streets here, I see why. Like, it's for sure, it feels like older version of DFS where you just have people that are super overreactionary and they carry over, player X burned me from last week, I can't draft him. And you get enough people doing that in the market, and players can get to pretty inefficient prices. So
yeah, and I just find this activity more fun.
It's so much more fun. The actual, like, if I showed someone my actual NFL Showdown process, which is the most fun I have playing DFS, be like, this is fun for you. You're doing like a whole lot of copying and pasting from spreadsheets, and then you press run on a couple different like things that you've that's fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Demario Douglas goes there in the 5th round. People are going back to Houston this week. Nico and Tank are going most drafts. I did hope. Most times I've drafted, I've had Tyler Lockett available in this sort of pick, so I was hoping to get him as my little Baltimore run back. But we were kind of talking a little bit before we started, and you're seeing a lot of Lamar teams in your boards that have the run back.
Yeah, I'm seeing the runbacks happen at a pretty high rate, and like runbacks are good. They typically are going to boost your EV. You know, if we were to if you were going to get very very virginal and compile every single team and sim it out, you know, runbacks in general are going to be good. But there's a tipping point, and when enough people are doing that runback, it can start to be disadvantageous to have it. And I don't know. I only have 26 boards, so I don't have a large enough sample to know for sure. But I'm kind of suspicious just with how easily accessible the runbacks for Lamar are, and where the ADPs stack up, that it might not get overplayed this week. So I'm totally fine not having a run back. I also have done 2 JSN teams. It's probably one JSN team too many, to be honest. But
Okay. Yeah, and I'm gonna do.
love it. Yeah.
This guy's standing out. Disappointed. What you're talking about? Disappointed last week. Quarterback change again. I don't really know how it's going to affect anything, but he's just been so consistent as far as his targets. I don't know if he's getting. I think he's probably getting drafted in most drafts.
I think he's going in most of them, but there's definitely spots where he's gone undrafted for me. So
okay, yeah. So
I think he's one of the better picks on the board, though. Just it's a high fragility spot for projections, and you know, if you just look at the receiver, agnostic of the quarterback, like Jacoby's been balling out, man. He's been there's no other receiver going within 2 rounds of him that's been even close to where he's at on like a weighted targets per route run. So it's like, to me, he feels like a no brainer kind of click. I do not have enough Jacoby. I gotta mix some more in.
yeah, and I haven't gotten to him because I've usually had 2 wide receivers by this point. Or maybe I'm grabbing a tight end in the last round if I don't take an early. I did want to throw out here the Zach Charbonnet stood out to me by Best Ball Viper here. That seemed like a pretty thin play, but
it's interesting for sure. I think to get there, you're just basically saying that no running back separates and Charbonnet falls into the end zone. That's how that's how you get there.
Yeah, and that's his only one, so definitely.
And I think that's a pretty good point. That if you're playing it that way, like if you're taking a running back that thin, you probably should be leaning that it's only one. You just take one running back on the week, then, right? You're just saying no running back separate. Running back doesn't matter this week. I'm taking one because I'm obligated to. And
yeah,
my guy gets a touchdown just like everyone else. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and if you're waiting this long, like who here?
You want a couple gross ones here?
Yeah,
I haven't clicked either of these yet, but Keontae Ingram with Amari DiMercato being out and Cleveland being a run funnel is kind of interesting. And the fact that he's undrafted. If he was getting drafted at all, I would not click him. But another one is I got a couple that are really gross.
Right, let me see. I didn't think about this one until I was just scrolling down here. But what about Cam Akers?
Yeah, you got it.
In that same idea that we wanted TJ Hawkinson, he seems to have made a role. Like it's not like he's been great, but he's made a role, and he's going to be the guy probably catching passes at running back.
Yeah, it's for sure gross just because it's going to be split with Madison no matter what. And Ty Chandler like got a couple touches the other week, but I think that they're. I mean, number one, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Minnesota comes out and it's their most run heavy game of the season. And number two, they definitely seem like they aren't pleased with what's happening at running. Like they're like, God, we got to get something to work at running back here.
Yeah.
And so, I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, let's really test if Akers gets a hot hand or if Madison has a fumble or something. I wouldn't be surprised to see him just, oh, fuck it, let's lean on Akers here. What's the worst that could happen? Type of deal. The other ones that are interesting are both the LA running backs, the Darrell Henderson and Royce Freeman, are both like
Henderson. Yeah.
If you were drafting 150 dog bowls, which like if you're actually doing that, wow, big bankroll baller.
Yeah, you should just take a trip to Miami if you're doing that.
Yeah, I would. I'd probably mix in like 3 of Royce Freeman and Darrell Henderson out of 150. But I think those are fine. The other one that could be interesting would be Roschon. Again, the Chicago backfield is like 3-headed monster, but Roschon looks good. Like he looks actually good. Mm-hmm. And Foreman looked good too, but Roschon definitely looks to be the better pass catcher. And so I think the best way to play Roschon is you should probably play Roschon in a lineup where you have a Saints stack already. Like you probably need to play it with a Carr and Olave or a Carr and Shaheed, because you really need Chicago to be down bad and they're forced to pass, and Roschon's the passing back in that scenario. But
all right, you got time for another draft of some sort?
Yeah, sure, man. Fire away.
We're just gonna make that our one Dawg Bowl. Plus, I don't know how fast that's filling. Let's see. Let's just take a peek at where the goal line stand is. Waiting for 8. We'll hang out here. Maybe we'll just go do a 6-man draft. See if anybody jumps in here. Yeah, so we'll wait here a few minutes. So I'm interested to hear about you. Let's talk about you for a minute. I only recently started seeing your name around with the Data Bowl stuff. So what's your I guess, and you've been doing some contributions at Spike Week even before that. So how did you get into fantasy? Been playing all your life? What's up with you?
Yeah, I've been playing fantasy for quite a while now. As far as like taking fantasy really serious, so I've always been into games. I really like strategy games. Just as a kid, my family was super into card games. Played a ton of card games growing up. Loved strategy and thinking about games and game theory and all that nerdy stuff.
Are you a Magic guy?
I never got into Magic, but it's for sure like the type of thing that I would be interested in, right? Like just this week, my brother came up to visit and we played some Kingdom Death Monster, which is it's a tabletop role playing game. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but does
it have big figures?
Yeah, it's got some miniatures, and yeah, there's definitely some larger ones in there. So yeah, super nerdy virgin gamer type of guy. But yeah, started taking fantasy seriously because I had just I had recently bounced out of a game that I'd been grinding super hard, playing competitively for a little while, and I was trying to develop a competitive scene there where tournaments could actually have like a halfway decent prize pool, and it just wasn't really going anywhere. It's like, all right. And the game kind of went in a direction where I wasn't super interested in it anymore. So decided it's Teamfight Tactics. It's like an auto chess. I don't know if you're familiar with Dota auto chess or anything. So like that. Lots of, math, probability, game theory, heavy type of game. But really the thing about those types of games is they're very like, they require an encyclopedic knowledge of the game to actually be good at it. And so it's just so wholly consuming. Like if you're going to play it competitively, you just spend all your time on it. And so that was, I had just gotten burnt out on it, so started doing fantasy even more seriously. Had been playing best ball relative, like not a huge amount of volume in previous years, like 4 figures or something, nothing super crazy. But like I maxed the DK Millie and like hadn't really played a ton on Underdog because what I had heard in previous years was underdogs were like all of the hardcore players go, and I'm definitely an edge seeker. So I was like, yeah, I'm not going to play with all the best people. I'll just play on DraftKings. Like there's tons of idiots on DraftKings. I'd played on Draft back before, when Underdog was Draft. But yeah, then last year I just really noticed how soft best ball was. DFS was really hard. I was playing DFS like between casual and serious. I hadn't started coding last year, and then I realized that if I wanted to actually keep playing DFS, I needed to learn to code and like go and pretty hard on it. And so I did that for Showdown because I knew exactly what I needed to do to play Showdown at a really high level. And so I did that and did all my coding that I needed to for that. But I felt like there's a way larger edge in best ball. So this summer drafted my largest amount of volume ever. And so far it's going pretty well. But I mean, it doesn't matter till week 17, right?
Right. Yeah. Got the question where your username came from. Let me guess. So no, I don't know. I assume it's football related, Sack, and then from there I don't know, just a fanaticism sort of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much an obsessive personality type. If you couldn't tell by that little spiel about, oh yeah, I played this game at a super competitive level and it requires literally all your time, and then I came over to fantasy football and also did why don't I just spend all my time on this thing? So yeah, very, very much a fanatic in my hobbies. And I liked the play on words. Like I very much was a, devout football fan, and Sackreligious without a K is, I liked the wordplay.
Yeah. But did you use that same in team fight tactics? Is that
no, I had a very very nerdy team fight tactics themed username there.
Okay.
Yippee Maukaye, a diehard reference there as well for probably dating myself.
Let's see here. Let's get a Jonathan Taylor team.
That's what I would do too. I love JT this week.
Yeah, but my usernames I've used since like middle school, various games. It started out on BattleNet as Poofy Sheep Man because I thought that was funny as a middle schooler playing StarCraft. That was where that
I was gonna ask what race you were in StarCraft.
Zerg.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely a Zerg player. And then from there, I needed to make it cooler, so I turned it to Dark Sheep Man. I think it was Garbage Man at some point because I thought that was funny. But and then eventually, I guess, I don't know whenever it became cool again in the early aughts to add the numbers instead of vowels. That's when I added it, like in high school, changed to Dark Sheep with the numbers, and I've just kept it since. So
the evolution of a sheep.
Yeah, and it's funny because I really wish I'd not had the numbers at this point, just because it's so hard at trying to do content and stuff. It's hard to share that, and that, well, I don't know where Twitter's going, but that was the sort of the best way to get people following you. So let's see, what do we got here? Interesting. Dak has fallen a little bit. I don't love Dak this week, just because I feel like at this point you can get similar players later. I'm going to take a Mike Evans.
That's what I would do. I love my favorite thing about the Jonathan Taylor teams is just the way that second tier of players kind of lines up for you, you can go a lot of different directions here. Like if if you got really fortunate and Olave fell back, that's crazy. Like if if Pollard falls here, that's awesome. Like I feel like you're never sad with your second round pick with Jonathan Taylor. So
yeah, and Josh Jacobs might fall. People are, I don't know if he's fallen that far, but yeah,
I have seen some Jacobs and JT teams, and when I see those, I'm like, that feels like what's winning the Dawg Bowl this week.
Okay, yeah, and I know I said I don't love Dak because the guy's later, and Baker is one of those QBs later. I mean, a couple people are watching this, but whatever. Yeah, but taking Evans there to set up maybe a Baker later feels pretty nice.
Yeah, I like it. And the other thing that I like about Evans is that whole other side of the game. The Houston side has lots of players that I like at cost, and it also opens up another quarterback that, again, guy you can get later. Also really like Schultz as a tight end option, just specifically on that other side. And so, yeah, lots of Evans is a great pick. He just, for whatever reason, man, people refuse to I don't really think he's all that much different than Chris Olave, but like everyone would. I feel like I almost never see Evans go before Chris Olave.
Yeah, I felt people attacking you from just you saying that.
And I have so much Chris Olave, right? But I mean, I think Evans is just, this is going to be the season where Mike Evans remains perpetually undervalued.
Yeah, I mean, everybody was off of him coming into the season, and that's where I don't know. I feel like I fall into. I'm not too much of an original thinker in football. I do fall into some of the group think and such. So I'm more of a hope I get the right construction sort of guy in football. But yeah, it's interesting because you wouldn't think like if Tampa is succeeding, you wouldn't think there'd be such a gap between Evans and Godwin this year, or is that a weird, crazy thing?
It's just so much of Baker's tendencies. Like he really, really has a preference for Evans. I think Godwin is also going, just because of how people value Evans, and then now he's become clearly the preferred receiver on that team. People still undervalue Godwin. Like I feel like every time I look at a Godwin projection, I'm like, dude, we're not attributing enough of the upside here. Like, yes, I would say that Evans is going to be the favorite to outscore Godwin in most weeks, but like, I think that we're forgetting how good Chris Godwin is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I liked, he was a spot this week where just when I look at projections, I was like, this one just feels like he's a little under projected relative to, if you look at the Mike Evans projection, then you look at the Chris Godwin projection, it's like, yeah, Evans should be projected for more, but not by as much more, as he is out in the industry compared to Godwin. So
Sure. Yeah. Okay. There he goes. My next question was, do you think there's enough in Baker to support two guys in a team like this? I don't feel like it this year.
No, I had done some Baker doubles in previous weeks, but I would not do it this week.
All right. This is a interesting pick. I'm looking at Puka here, as well as Rashad White.
Yeah, I think that Puka gives you more upside, but if you get a big blowout in that, or even just a high scoring game in that Tampa-Houston game, it is nice to have. I mean, White's got such a strong role. With Puka, for me, Puka is you're just playing that Stafford actually plays. Because hypothetically, let's pretend that today we knew Stafford was playing.
Yeah.
Puka could probably go like at least 6-7 picks earlier, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't think that he goes before Terry McLaurin, but I think that he probably ends up around maybe like Amari Cooper or Nico, like right in that DK Metcalf, right?
Yeah, because he is someone, but where he's going, Blitz has him like 1 point different than around the guys that he's going just for a median. So yeah, the fall is definitely related to the quarterback situation. And
Yeah,
not
and
him.
so that to me that comes as like a risk tolerance question, and like if you have other spots you think that are exploitable and you don't care to like YOLO it on a Stafford health RNG, then it's like, yeah, sure, I can pass on Puka because I can win the slate at other spots. But I think that's one where it's like there's a clear path to this pick being a better pick than the price that I'm making it at. I
Yeah.
don't think it happens. I think Stafford's more likely to sit, but I've mixed in a couple Puka shares when he falls, just because if that happens, I want to have at least just a taste,
Yep. Sure. Yeah. It was definitely more of a safety pick for me, which obviously you don't always want to make.
Man, this the Aaron Jones steam is
It's happening.
yeah, the train
Uh,
may be running away here.
as someone who basically the one game he tries to watch each week is the Packer game. I have a hard time. Well, I don't even make it through most of them this year. I turn them off pretty quick. But man, I don't trust the coach. I don't. There's so much I don't like about it that it's hard to click. Let's see. We are on the clock here. Let's just play
Ooh.
off of the other lineup and get a Jordan Addison team.
Have you read Whistles Go Woo paper on optimizing for order statistics in NFL Showdown?
You posted it in somewhere. I think the Badge Bros Discord the other day.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was Lols or Badge Bros,
Yeah,
but
somewhere you posted it. I have a tab on my phone with it open.
it's
That's as close as I've gotten to
it's
reading.
really cool, man. It's a great paper.
So how does that relate?
Yeah, it relates because I'm going to give you like the super, this is not exactly correct, but the super simplified version is that you should be playing lineups that are kind of negatively correlated to each other, more or less. Whereas, you got one lineup that here has Hawkinson and one that has Addison. And so those players they're not going to be all the way negatively correlated. They might have like a small negative correlation. But in general, what you want to be doing, and this was with respect to NFL Showdown DFS, it also does carry over and apply to classic DFS slates, certainly would apply in this context too. But you shouldn't be building teams that are all going to do well when one player does well, or all going to do poorly when one player does poorly. You should be optimizing for the largest number of outcomes that could possibly give you a first place lineup, right? And so, like, if you are thinking of it through a DFS lens, some people do this is kind of like a hacky version of getting some similar result on your portfolio diversification, but some people use min uniques to do that, where like you have a minimum number of unique players per lineup. But really what you actually want to do is consider each lineup like its own asset class or asset, and then you're calculating the correlation of the lineups against each other. And then the way that you actually would do it, if you're getting super sweaty about it, is you would come up with all of the possible lineups that you could build. You'd put them into the same type of calculation you would do to find the efficient frontier of an investment portfolio. And then you would find the efficient frontier with your DFS or, Underdog BR portfolio. Going to be a lot harder to execute in BR because it requires you to be able to navigate the different draft rooms. I think the way you'd actually do it in a BR is you'd probably set checkpoints for yourself with your volume. Like, I'm 25% of the way through my volume right now. I'm going to do an efficient frontier analysis on my portfolio. oh, my portfolio says I need a lot more Aaron Jones to approach the efficient frontier. Okay, 50% of the way through, I need way more Jordan Addison. Something like that.
Okay. All right. We are down to quarterback and tight end. The Godwin guy he's already got a QB. Let's see how many people have QBs. Beefcake still needs one. Whipdole needs one. I don't think Whipdole would take him from us. So we're gonna pop in a Logan Thomas here.
I really like Logan Thomas this week. He's one of my highest drafted tight ends.
Okay.
With Curtis Samuel being out, and he's like the second highest first read target rate on the team. It's Terry McLaurin and then Logan Thomas. And so, I definitely like that against the Patriots.
So we have a chance that Beefcake's going to take Baker on us here. And then maybe we get a little crazy. We'll see what happens. But I have a plan if he does get. I mean, maybe it's an obvious plan, but we'll see what happens. I mean, we can just.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you're playing Addison, you're saying that he does enough anyway, right? So it's like.
I had to look at my sheet to know the name of the quarterback. Yeah. I didn't even know what I was going to look up. I guess I could have typed Minnesota and not admitted to that. But all right, yeah. So I'm going to take Baker here.
Yeah, I would for sure take Baker.
But yeah, I'm not afraid to do that, especially in something as deep of a roster as this 12-person draft.
I like the way this team shook out, though. I think this is an interesting one for sure.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So just taking a quick glance here at guys at the end. Yeah. So Jacoby Meyer did go in this one. Demario Douglas went.
Michael Gallup is not one that I have seen before, I gotta say.
Oh, that's I can't say that I've seen him either. We did get an Odell pick here too. He's not going every time.
I think the Luke Musgrave pick is pretty good. He's going more frequently now.
Yeah,
I think someone hyped him up a little bit or something.
There is one tight end that I took one of. I want to get your opinion on here. All right, yeah, Jonnu Smith this week with kind of the reduced players in that.
Yeah,
offense.
I think that's fine. I think there's a couple really, just with how hard tight end fall. The last couple tight ends, you're like, oh my god, am I taking Tyler Higbee here? Am I taking Luke Musgrave? The last couple are so bad that I think there's a few really gross ones that. Like I did a Kylan Granson team that felt really, really yucky.
Okay.
I think one is my limit there. Only need to light $25 on fire for Kylan Granson. I don't need to light anymore.
Yeah, I mean, 4 targets. How many? Like everybody else in this last thing might end up with 4 targets.
Yeah.
So Luke Musgrave, he's proven that he's on a pretty short leash.
Oh man, I've got a sad Luke Musgrave story for you. So it was the Packers and I can't remember. I think Packers Raiders showdown slate. I had a couple lineups that were looking really good, and it's like, oh, I need like a bunch of Josh Jacobs. I need literally the only thing that lets me ship first place is I need a bunch of Josh Jacobs, and then I need a Luke Musgrave, like just to go crazy. And there was only time for like each team to have one more drive left. Well, sure enough, Jacobs gets like 5 little dink and dunk, Jimmy Garoppolo passes and racks up enough where I'm like in the top 100 of the flagship contest. And like, okay, well, there's no way Luke Musgrave gets there. And sure enough, it's like Luke Musgrave 10-yard reception, Luke Musgrave 10-yard reception. Like, no way is this happening right now. The second to last play of the game, I was down 2.2 points to first place. So I needed, a Luke Musgrave 13-yard reception. Well, they were, I think it was like 3rd and 12 or something like that. And they throw the ball to Luke Musgrave that he's past the sticks. So it would have been a 13-yarder. It would have literally been enough for me. It was a 380K split for first. I was only duped a couple times.
Yeah.
And it hits him in the hands. And he fucking drops it. I just couldn't. I've had a lot of good showdown sweats like that one. And they usually don't tilt me. It's just like, whatever. I had no control over that. I played a great lineup. I'm happy with the process. But that one hurt real bad.
Yeah, he has been. I think I've played him most weeks, just because I know that's the game I'm going to be watching for sure. And yeah, he's not really established himself. Like you see the flashes, but I don't know about this last week. But yeah. So all right. Well, thank you, Kyle Sack, for joining me tonight. Had fun. Thanks everybody for watching. You're not on Twitter, but where can people find your stuff? I guess.
Yeah, you can. I mean, you can always find me lurking in the various Discord channels, Deposit Kingdom, or over at Spike Week. And then my work is all up on Spike Week if you're interested in checking any of that out.
Yeah, and you kind of gave me a hint at something you're working on, which sounds pretty cool. So we'll leave it at that. So yeah, everybody have an awesome weekend. Hopefully somebody watching this has a trip to Miami. Maybe you have another ticket in your future. But yeah, everybody, thanks for watching. So have a good weekend.